So I don't forget.
Okay.
Okay?
Wow, everyone's tired today?
Okay. It is 6:30, and we're calling to order the Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. And roll call. Present we have
Eric Knapp, Land Use Coordinator.
Catherine Tracy, alternate. Stephanie Meckel.
Amy Hewitt, clerk.
Nancy Hutchinson, Chair.
Kip Kotze.
Brian Cole, alternate.
Sylvia Rakowska, counsel.
Okay, so absent is Steve Dix, Russ Fogg, and alternate Michaela Pearson. So seated for today's meeting will be the 5 members present. Steve Dix, myself, Nancy Hutchinson, Kip Kotze, Stephanie Nickel, Brian Cole, and Kathleen Tracy. Okay, so we're moving on to the agenda, the start of the public hearing. And at the start of the public hearing, I always give people some helpful instructions to facilitate efficient review. So please present the evidence that an unusual and unnecessary hardship exists based on strict application of zoning regulations due to some peculiar condition of the property itself, and that the condition does not generally affect other properties in the district. The evidence that the variances requested are the minimum necessary to alleviate the unusual hardship and allow reasonable use of the property, whether any reduction in legal pre-existing nonconformity is proposed, and the evidence that the variances requested are in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning regulations and the comprehensive plan of zoning. And we have one case today, and that is case 25-5, 307 Swan Avenue, who requests variances to allow construction of a 29 by 40-foot detached garage with half bath on a C30 lot with existing 3-bedroom year-round dwelling. Frank Lishing, applicant. The opening of the public hearing was delayed from the May 15th, 2025 CPA meeting at the applicant's request. Yesterday, the applicant's attorney, Danielle Berkery, submitted a letter addressed to Land Use Coordinator ZEO Knapp dated June 17th, 2025, which provides additional information related to the application and responses to the ZEO Knapp's review memo to the board. The variance requested by the applicant is to section 8.9.7, minimum setback from the street line, minimum of 30 feet required in the C10 district, as adjusted per section 8.6, narrow street right-of-way, an additional 4.25 feet, resulting in a total required street setback line from North Lane of a total of 34.25 feet. The ZEO, in his memo to the board dated April 29, 2025, refers to the definition of accessory structure in the zoning regulations. Section 3.2.2, accessory building or structure. A building or structure, in addition to the principal building, which is clearly subordinate to and customarily incidental to and located on the same lot as the principal building and which is in character with the neighborhood. And he indicated that at least one other variance would be required. Section 7.1E, accessory buildings shall not occupy more than the area of the building coverage of the principal building to which they are accessory. And so, based on the additional information submitted by the applicant yesterday, does the ZEO care to revise the variances that would be required?
I will let the applicant make their case as to whether they believe this is a smaller building or not. I still believe it's a larger one. The other issue is, based on the memorandum that was submitted, there is a question as to whether this is accessory to this site or is accessory to 75 Swan. If it is accessory to 75 Swan, then they would need a different variance, which is 7.1A, which requires the accessory use to be on the same lot as the primary use. So I think the applicant will need to clarify that as well.
Okay, so we're not going to address which applicant variances are required at this point in time. We're going to go to the applicant and let them clarify. Okay, so usually I ask them if you revise your application, but I think we need more information to answer that question.
Yes, and we can provide as much information as you would like.
Okay.
As much as we have. Anyway, we have most of it, if not all of it. So good evening. For the record, as you know, Joe Wren, PE, of Indigo and Old Saybrook. With us.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
I did skip a step, so
Okay.
usually I do ask if, I just want to ask Sylvia, usually I do ask at that point if they plan to amend their application. Do you think I should do that now or wait till after the presentation?
Well, I suppose it doesn't have to come now.
Okay,
It sounds like
because usually we do it
It's
first.
not accessory to 75 Swan. 75 Swan's small lot, strictly residential, right, south of Route 1.
Correct.
It's another
Okay.
property they own. It's a different property. It has nothing to do with this application.
That's where I reside.
Okay, well, we'll let you present now.
Okay.
We've got so much last minute information, we're just trying to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, most of it was with the original application. There was some clarifications based on Eric's memo and so forth that were provided. But again, Joe Wren, Indigo and Old Saybrook. With me this evening, Frank Lishing and his wife, front row. And then Danielle Berkery and her associate also here. So since this was continued or tabled at last month's meeting, we did send out a new round of mailings and we provided all that confirmation to the town staff. The site location, and this is kind of an interesting one, it's a little different than what we normally are talking about up here. So we're on Swan Avenue, but we're north of Route 1. We're not in a residential zone, even though many of the buildings over there are residential. But there is a good, fairly dense mixture of garages in that area too. It is in the C30 zone. It's in the commercial zone. It's not in the residential zone. This particular property. So this is on the corner of Swan Avenue.
Just to clarify though, that it's in a
C10, sorry.
C10. So in C10, you still can have the principal use be residential. That's one of the uses. So it's in a C10 district, but one of the uses can be residential.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. And you also can have a garage in the C10
Yeah,
zone, right? It's
yeah.
more of an appropriate use in that particular zone. So the property is located at the corner of Swan Avenue, which is to the west, and then North Lane, which most of you don't know because it's a pretty narrow gravel road and it just runs parallel to the railroad tracks. So facing to the north, you're looking at railroad tracks and then trees beyond this. Also, the northeast corner, there's Soundview Avenue. So we're surrounded by 3 streets. So this property has 3 street setbacks. Now, in Old Lyme, as you know, we have to determine if the streets are private or public. And if it's a public road, then we have to apply the narrow street setback, which does apply to North Lane. We have all of that in the table. Soundview Avenue is also a town road, so we get the wider setback on that side. Let's see. And the street line setback on North Lane is 35, and then Swan Avenue is also the 35 feet as well. So if you look at footnote 7 under our table, it says narrow street setback. So it applies to all 3 streets, so severely restricting from 3 sides this particular property. On this map, highlighted in yellow, are the setback lines. So you can see that we have this narrow band here. The house is more than half outside of that upwards. And then it's a large lot, right? It's over 15,000 square feet where we only need 10,000. So it's more than 50% what's required in the zone. But it's this L shape and it has 3 frontages. So when you apply everything, on this side you only get this strip, maybe a foot wide. So that's obviously clearly the hardship for the setback. We did, initially it wanted to be a little bit further to the east, but since we had that narrow street setback, we made it conform on the east side. But as you can see, there's no way to make it conform on the north side.
Yeah.
Actually, this building can't go anywhere on the lot. Any building of any normal, reasonable dimensions can't go on the lot without needing a variance. These 2 strips here are the septic system. So you can't even, without affecting the septic system, you can't add on to the existing house. You can't build anything in this area. That's where the existing functional septic system is, all in that zone. So for the location on the lot, facing the railroad tracks, away from other things and uses, that's the best location, and that's where the applicant would like to build this garage. The initial garage was larger. We tailored it back. Frank would love a larger garage, but we came up with this size to be smaller than the house, initially, so that your regs mention smaller in coverage. We do clearly show that here. We have these coverage tables, and you can see that the coverage of the garage is less than the coverage of the house.
I did have some questions about that, because if you go just measuring from the scale of the site plan, or you go by measuring what from the assessor's table, it does look like it's still larger.
Nope. This is all measured in CAD from the A2 survey, so this is as accurate, as you get much more accurate than the assessor information. So on the old line coverage tables in the bottom left corner, we have the existing building coverage at 1413, and that's the total of the house and the sheds. Obviously, we take the sheds out. So the house is 1292.0 according to that table. And then if you slide over to the right for the proposed, we have the proposed garage, and that's 1260. So we're 32 square feet less.
Yeah, I guess
The tax assessor doesn't.
That's not as accurate as an A2 survey.
But I'm saying if you just
measured, it's a
if you-
lot different.
if you measure, just take a ruler and measure the survey and say what it is.
Still can't do it as accurate as AutoCAD. We're 32 square feet less. That's what we're providing. That's what we're proposing.
Okay, well,
We have a survey. We have an A2 survey, which is what you require. We have a site plan, fully dimensioned, done to the
so
standards that we always used
why
to.
are these numbers different than just measuring off the map?
Can you measure? How accurately can you measure with a scale?
I'm saying, but even if you just measured, this is roughly 4 inches by 3 inches,
Roughly.
and then with a section cut out of it.
Roughly.
Yeah. Okay.
Not
I just, yeah,
So you're saying your measurements are more precise than
It's
this?
the engineered plan, yes. Absolutely. They
I think we
always
should
are.
go with the most precise measurement.
yeah.
Sometimes.
Usually we go by the A2 survey, but you're saying that there's some other measure
No,
that.
this is the A2 survey. It's
Oh.
based on the A2 survey.
Oh, but
You
the-
said you were going on the assessor card.
No, I said, and I'm measuring from the actual graph of this, taking that measure ruler with this scale and measuring here and
But
calculating.
you're not measuring to the 100th of a foot with a scale.
No, I'm not measuring the 100th foot.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're measuring maybe to the nearest foot, which is approximate.
Okay, and you're saying, so this CAD number is from what?
So the existing condition is from the A2 survey
Yeah,
that we have. The proposed condition is from our site plan,
Mm-hmm.
done in AutoCAD, 29 by 40 plus the eaves.
okay.
I'm sorry, what is the A2 survey?
Class A2 survey is the boundary precision required by the state of Connecticut for a boundary survey, and is required by your regulations for a ZBA site plan.
So a standard survey with a guy out there measuring, you're saying?
But to a certain class of precision.
It's-
I think it has to
it's
be
a
like,
Class A
I'm not a
survey.
surveyor, but it should be like 1 in 5,000 or something like that. It's very precise.
In the table, I don't think this is contested. You're saying this, this is 20 by 40 on the thing, which is what we're holding.
29 by 40.
29 by, okay. Yeah, 29 by 40, my bad. Okay. No, I got it, it's 11, but that's right, that does calculate to 11,
That's 1160.
1160.
No, we're saying, no one's arguing what the proposed is, they're saying the measurement of the actual existing current. Anyway, so the zoning enforcement officer, the assessor's table and my measurements didn't seem to agree with these numbers, but you're saying that these are more accurate than any of those other numbers.
There's nothing more accurate than a Class A2 survey. It was done by a licensed land surveyor.
Yeah.
Not us, we're not surveyors. The reference map is up here in the general note.
The other thing, you're measuring to the eaves. I'm measuring to the structure of the building. Maybe that's the difference.
The eaves on the house are actually more, so.
No, but it says existing house, 2 eaves.
Right.
Is a 1292. So maybe that's the difference, because I'm measuring to the building, not to the eaves. Because the eaves can extend 12 inches beyond the building.
Okay.
I think that's the difference we're facing, is one is measuring of the building structure itself, and one is measuring to the eaves. That's what it says on
Could be.
here. So I think we are talking apples and oranges. I don't know. Which do we need to go by?
But the key idea
Both are
is,
measured
you're
to
just
the
saying,
eaves.
because this has to be smaller than the existing structure that is an accessory on the property too.
Yeah.
That's,
Important.
yeah,
Can I just because I want to make the record clear without having to dig through a lot of documents, reading the transcript, can we just articulate, Joe just read what he has on his survey, what the square footage is. I don't know that you've articulated what the assessor card says and or what Eric has said.
I have.
They're on the same thing about what if any differences there are between the two.
So the
Remember-
assessor's card, I think, says 1105, and the calculations from measuring is 1122. That's what I got, not 1292. Anyway, but I'm not talking about the house, not the eaves.
We are fine with a condition that it's confirmed that the proposed structure is smaller than the house. I mean, we have the age survey, it's measured very precisely. I don't think the applicant would be opposed to that condition. That's what our initial intent was.
Okay. Thank you. I was clarifying that. I was
That's why the
confused.
garage got smaller. Frank initially wanted a larger garage. We got it smaller, so it was less than the house. So
Okay.
that's where we came up
Okay.
with the 1260.
Okay, less footprint than the house, but still taller.
But your regulations don't say that. Your regulations
No, I
don't
know.
mention coverage.
I know.
The height is also in the table, and yes, the house is 17.5 feet plus
Yeah.
or minus. And the garage is 23 feet, 0.2 plus or minus.
Mm-hmm.
But it is separated by a large distance. It's not standing right next to it.
Yeah.
This is almost like two lots put together. This distance is very far. This is 1 inch equals 10 feet. That's probably 70 feet or so apart.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think you've been very clearly expressing the hardship is the setbacks, and there's no other place to put a garage. I guess the question is just, what we're going to talk about today is, is it the minimum required to address the hardship? But I think we clarified that you are going to ensure that it is smaller footprint than the house.
Yeah, that's what we're
condition.
already testifying to, but we absolutely can have a condition that's rechecked. We could have the surveyor go back out, give you a sheet that shows this is precisely to the 10th of a square foot. Existing
Right.
conditions. That's not a problem.
And do we calculate from the eaves or from the sides of the building?
You calculate from the size of the building, but that said, again, there's more to the definition than strictly just square footage. I mean, it talks about clearly subordinate to and customarily incidental to. So merely being smaller in square footage isn't the only thing you should be evaluating whether you're determining it's accessory. So when we get there, I'm going to encourage you to go back and read your definition of accessory structure to see whether you believe this is an accessory structure to the main structure.
Okay.
So another thing in addition to that, and when Danielle comes up after me, she's going to talk more about that part of this and her letter and so forth.
Okay.
But that regulation mainly is written for, and it's, I know you're rewriting your regulations, and I know it's going to be more clear than the regulations from the last 30, 40 years. But that's clearly written for a residential property. We have a commercial property here, which allows multiple buildings.
It's in the commercial district, but it's a residential
But it's in a commercial zone.
But
But the regs are written in a commercial district because you have more than one commercial building in a commercial zone that is being used for a shopping center or other purpose. You can have more than one principal building in a commercial zone for commercial purposes.
Okay.
You have a residential use, and therefore to say that you can have more than one primary use in a residential use, I think is a misinterpretation of the regs. Obviously, I will let the attorney argue to the contrary.
Yeah, we're not proposing another primary use. There's no commercial operations, and that should be clarified too. There's no commercial operations proposed out of this. It's strictly, Frank is a car guru, a collector. So he just wants a place to place his collectibles. He's not working on cars for other people. He's not storing cars for other people.
It's personal use only.
Personal use only. So it's incidental to what you say is a non-conforming residential use in the C.
It's a conforming use. That's the problem. Residential use is allowed in the zone, but because you're using it residentially, you should evaluate the other uses as if the property's being used residentially, not commercial.
So still, what I said, it's incidental to the residential use.
Okay, we'll just move on and get some
Yeah.
more information. Okay.
So we talked about the 3 streets, we talked about the C10, we talked about it's 15,000 square feet, so it has the lot, more than the lot area that's required. The proposed conditions, we talked a lot about the garage. There is a driveway that goes out to North Lane here. There are garage doors on the front of that, so the width of the driveway accommodates those garage doors. Frank did talk to Public Works about that, and they are fine with that, the driveway in that location and that width, so we're okay there. He does have this concrete area around the garage,
What's the purpose of that?
right?
Oh, when you speak, you have to come up and say your name. Oh, I'm covering the recorder. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm Frank Lischig. I wanted to be able to pull up next to the garage door. I'm handicapped, I can't walk very well, and get out of my vehicle and go into the side door of the garage rather than opening up a great big overhead door.
But it's going around all sides and you only have a door on one side.
Correct. I want to be able to park a motorcycle out there and work on it, clean it type of thing, washing them, cleaning them, just waxing them, just to have area around there.
So that's no zoning, we're not asking for a variance for that. We have total ground coverage, we're under, in this zone you get 60%, we're proposing 25%. So we're well under the ground coverage. And plus, even though it's not necessarily required, we've added underground stormwater infiltration system here, where the roof water and the runoff off of that would be collected in a swale here to this yard drain, and the yard drain would infiltrate that stormwater into the ground
That's helpful.
in that area. So that's the feature that we have to accommodate that extra
Okay.
coverage that we're proposing.
Okay.
Even though we're less than half of what's allowed in the zone, obviously it's the right thing to do, and we don't want to push any extra water off to any neighbor or any street. So we've included these concrete galleries surrounded by crushed stone with that yard drain in that location.
Okay, thank you very much. I just hadn't seen that before. 8 to 10 feet of concrete around the outside.
Yeah, it drains to this side, there's a swale, it drains to this side, and it all carries it. You can see the grade to drain arrows, it all carries it down to that inlet that's on the surface of the ground with a grate, and it goes underground to the infiltration. And it's far enough away from the septic system, of course.
I have a couple motorcycles, and I'd like to be able to pull them into the garage with this apron here. If I didn't
Oh,
have it
that's
taped,
what
I'd
that
have to
other
drive
little
onto
door
the
is for.
grass, and I have a small roll-up door here.
Yeah.
And I plan on parking in through this way.
Okay.
And this side is where I was going to be able to park my vehicle that I drive up to. So I live down the street, but to come up to the garage and
Okay.
I want to be able to park the car on the side of the building.
Okay. So I was wondering what that other little garage door was
That's
for
what
the
it's for, and
motorcycle.
getting the lawnmower in there. I've got a riding tractor that I'll be
Okay.
able to put the lawnmower into there.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
And I'll have cars parked in other parking slots inside the garage, so I can't get a lawnmower next to the vehicle to get in and out of there, or a motorcycle.
Okay. Thank you.
In the garage is just a sink and toilet, so that's connected to a new septic tank and added to the existing leaching field. And as you saw in the application, that was previously approved by Ledgelight.
Yeah. And the state.
The soil conditions on the site are really conducive to that. They're sand and gravelly soils with good percolation rates. So before we get to Danielle, I just wanted to go over the narrative parts of the application. We already went.
Who's going to go over the actual structure of the building? You or Danielle?
I could show you the building. Jerry Kuska is not here this evening, but I could actually show you that. We'll do that. We'll do that last. We'll do that next.
Yep. That
We'll
would
go
be
through
good.
this
Yep,
first?
That's good.
So just jump to number 3 because we talked a lot about number 2 already. Subject lot conforms to lot area in the C10 zone, but it is an irregularly shaped lot with 3 road frontages. Due to the 3 road frontages, all 3 are town roads and subject to the narrow street provision, and other yard setbacks, approximately 89% of the lot area is restricted from building without a variance. That doesn't include the septic system area. That's only the 11% is within that yellow area. And you can see that you can't build anything bigger than like 11 or 12 feet in there. So due to the location of the existing house and septic system, the garage can only be placed in the northeast corner, as we talked about before. Due to the narrow street provision, all setbacks narrowly overlap, and there's essentially no buildable area. The subject lot is, this is number 4 now, the subject lot is unique as it is an irregularly shaped L-shaped lot and has 3 town road frontages, again, subject to the narrow street provision. The property also has a railroad right-of-way directly across North Lane to the north. Again, we mentioned that, but up here, this is all Amtrak.
I noticed when I was there, there's like a little bridge there on the railroad track, and it's a big pipe coming out under it. What is that? Do you know?
It's just drainage under the railroad, right?
I believe it's water from the wells, from old Lyme water, feed
Oh.
the shoreline.
Because it goes right to where you're going to put your garage, as long as it's not going to
No,
problem.
it comes right out of there, and I think it turns to the east.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
then
there's
guys
a
into
swale, there's a
fire
ditch.
hydrants and stuff.
Okay, good, good. I didn't want you to hit a problem with a big giant pipe.
Thank you for that. It was a great observation. We were obviously out at the lake, out at the property. We did see that. This shouldn't be an issue. The garage is set up a little bit higher than the street itself. So, we have some, it's pretty flat, but we have some pitch out to the road and out to this area, so the runoff goes mostly from the driveway down to the infiltration system. Just to continue on, the lot area exceeds the minimum required in the zone, but due to the shape and 3 road frontages with narrow street provision, the buildable area is extremely restricted. Number 5, there is only 1 dimensional setback variance requested for the proposed garage. Since the existing house is not proposed to be altered in any way, there are no proposed reductions in nonconformity. And lastly, number 6, the requested variance will allow the proposed garage to be constructed in the location shown. The property is in the commercial C10 zone, and the proposed garage would be permitted on a regularly shaped conforming C10 building lot. There are no coverage or GFA or height variances requested. Additionally, there are other similar structures in the neighborhood. Therefore, the project is consistent with the spirit and intent of the comprehensive plan of zoning. And we did submit this yesterday. This graphic here, we highlighted in yellow. This is just a printout of the GIS map. We highlighted in yellow 4 structures within the very close proximity of the proposed location.
Actually, 3, whatever.
Yeah, we have 4. Well, there's 3 properties, yes, but 4 buildings. So we have a garage down in the southwest. And that's 36 by 42. We have one in the northeast. That's 34 by 50. It has 2 floors, and it's almost 4,000 square feet total. And then there's one down on Route 1 that is 38 by 52. Looks like 1 story, so it's about 2,100 square feet. So there are, we'll call it 3. We identified that commercial building on Route 1, but if we're looking at just garages, we show the 3. They're all substantially larger than this. If we're proposing the 1,260 square feet, we have 2,100, 4,000, and
Those numbers.
this garage is larger as well at over 50.
So all 3 of those are commercial properties with commercial principal uses. Like one's the police station, as an application we talked about before. It's near. It's a commercial building, and I guess my question is, and then the numbers that you are saying there are not the footprints; they're the total square footage of floor
Correct.
areas.
Right.
So.
Well, some of them, this one here, and actually 2 of them are 1 floor. We're showing the 1,500 and the 2,100. The 4,000 one is 2 stories, the 34 by 50. It's 2 stories, so we show the whole thing. But even if you cut that in half, it's 2,000 square feet. It's more than 1.5 times.
Right, for a commercial property, they're not accessory structures for a residential dwelling. But anyway, just wanted to
We're just
clarify.
showing that this will fit in with the harmony because this is an L-shaped lot. For passers by that don't know this is one L-shaped lot, it looks like it's on its own lot, just like
I
this
see.
northeast one does. No one knows where the property line is. You drive by North Lane and really no one else does. But if you drive by North Lane, you might think the property line's here, and you have, because these are over 60, 70 feet apart, if not more. So they look like separate structures. It's not right next to it, hulking over it. It's away from it, and it looks like it's on its own lot.
Okay.
So we think meets the spirit and harmony of the area and of the regulations in the comprehensive plan. So
Yeah.
you asked about the building plan.
Yeah.
So the garage was larger when we started. It was taller when we started. The second floor loft up here, this was like a full height, right?
Correct.
Full height loft. We looked at the floor area of that. Frank unwillingly, right, made changes to shrink the footprint of the garage, shrink the floor area, make the attic less than 6 feet, so that our floor area was shrunken down and reduced so that it didn't appear larger than it needed to be.
So adding an internal ceiling at 5 feet 11 inches, so it doesn't count as floor area or second story.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of that is,
Attic storage for car parts.
no, but
vehicle parts.
why add the ceiling at exactly 5 feet 11 inches?
If it was over 6 feet, it counts as floor area.
It
for your
still
definition.
might count as floor area because it's an attic. And the
But it's
definition
less
of
than 6 feet, so it doesn't.
the attic
it's very
space, the space between the top surface of the ceiling beams of the top story and the bottom surface of the roof rafters, which space is not finished or otherwise capable of being used as habitable space.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But if you look at your definition of story or gross floor area, it clearly says 6 feet and greater.
right, except in the attic, maybe constitute a story or a half story.
Can you repeat that? I'm not familiar with the attic.
I guess it says the space between the top surface of the ceiling beams of the top story. So you're saying there's one story, and you're saying the top of that ceiling space to the bottom surface of the roof rafters. So you're saying it's an attic. So I'm not sure that adding a ceiling 5 feet 11 inches in the attic makes it not count as at least a half a story, if not a second story.
If you read your other regulations, you could ask council for clarification, but if you read your regulations for story and floor area, it clearly says 6 feet and over. We've been doing that in town for as long as I can remember.
Right, but attic is specifically saying you measure that from the ceiling to the roof rafters, not as a ceiling added.
But
I'm
if
not
there's a
sure.
ceiling in there, how is there more usable space?
It's not usable, but that's the point, is the attic is measured between the roof, is measured between the ceiling beams of the top story and the bottom of the roof rafters.
So this is a truss ceiling, so that is the rafter. The top of the ceiling is the rafter. It's part of the truss, the pre-manufactured truss. So above that,
Oh, I see what
you
you're
have the horizontal member, and then you have angled members above that. There's no open space.
So it's not, the ceiling is at the bottom of the truss.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And if it
It's
wasn't,
not that-
didn't have a ceiling, then it would be more room upstairs to, stand up and store stuff. That's a real inconvenience for me to put a ceiling on it and cap it off. And my head's gonna hit the ceiling, walk around it.
The only purpose of the truss above that is just for aesthetics, otherwise it would be a flat.
So the bottom of the truss is where the ceiling is.
Correct. Yeah, and I want to have heat and air conditioning, so it'll be insulated, and encased, enclosed.
Heat
It's
and
not
air
going to be
conditioning.
open.
You said it would have heat and air conditioning in a non-habitable space downstairs.
I'm putting collectible antique vehicles in there, and they
In the
get all
first
sweaty
floor.
if they don't have climate control.
In the first floor, but not in this attic area.
Correct. I mean, there's gonna be parts upstairs.
Right,
And
right.
I'm sure that the temperature's going to carry upstairs as well. I hadn't intended on keeping it, tolerable up there. I did put windows up there so that I could air it out if it got ungodly hot.
I see. Okay. That's helpful. I didn't mean to interrupt you when you were talking about the
No,
ceiling.
that's okay, that's all the questions you need. Yeah, and you could see how this is in this section, you can see how the truss is. It has that open space, and then this is the rest of the truss. The trusses haven't been designed or ordered yet, but how trusses work, there would be other members in there as well. But we just have that triangular space for the top of the gambrel.
So the bottom floor is 11 feet something inches,
Too.
11 feet 2 inches.
Mhm.
So it's less than 12 feet. So it doesn't count as only one story.
Initially, that was
And then
more
the
than
story
12.
above it is 5 feet 11 inches. So it doesn't count as a story.
Correct.
For your.
Yes. Frank has a car lift, and the ceiling can't be lower because the car would hit the ceiling to work underneath it.
Okay.
And for storage.
Excuse me?
And for storage.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
car lift will have a vehicle on it, and I can put it in the air and then park another vehicle underneath it
I
for
see.
storage, just because I had to shrink the garage down.
So, and basically the reason you have the 4 bays is because you have so many cars.
Correct.
Danielle provided a list of the vehicles, the
Yep,
motorcycles,
yep,
and the
yep.
collectible vehicles.
And I understand that too, but a lot of times the variances are to run with the land, not with the owner.
Mhm.
So usually, yeah.
I know that's how I started this, is that this is an interesting one for all of us. It's different than what we're normally used to,
Yeah.
right? We're normally used to houses in a flood zone, and we're tearing them down and rebuilding them and asking for variances. This is different. Probably very unique, I would say. But without further ado, I think I gave you everything that I have. Danielle would like to go through her letter that she, go ahead, a question.
I'd say two things. You had mentioned about shrinking in the effort to shrink the building down. How did you arrive at 29 by 40?
The square footage for the house.
We made it just.
I mean,
I mean, as opposed to say 25 by 40 or 22 by 40. How did you get to 29?
I needed the width for the vehicles. The
But that's the
10-foot
40.
width. So then I went as far deep as I could and still stayed less than the size of the house.
You need
I
room.
wanted that, was going 30 foot. I mean, I like round numbers, but 29.
No, I get you. I mean, the average vehicle is going to be what? Maybe 20? Truck would be 20 feet.
Right, but I wanted to have a workbench and have a place to put the motorcycles and so forth, not just car storage.
Right.
So there are more than 4 cars that are stored. Did you see the list that was provided?
Yeah, I did.
What are
You got 3 classics, a couple of bikes.
2 motorcycles, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I plan on growing my,
I got collection.
5 cars and 2 bikes?
yeah.
So 7 vehicles we have to fit in there, and then still have room for stairway and workbench, tools.
Because I think the
and
thing
who
is,
did the A2?
Dave and that's on our plan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I
General note number 1, we always reference the Class A2 survey. It's right there, 1A.
Thank you.
yeah, I guess, could you go back
Yeah.
to me, just to say my thing right now, it's like, you clearly have a hardship.
Mhm.
I think what I'm struggling with is this the minimum to address the hardship? And I can understand why you want this, but as Brian says, this structure is almost entirely in the setbacks. And yes, you can, so anything you can reduce the extent of the encroachment and setbacks would be helpful. It's like, as you mentioned, most garages are like, say, 20 to 24 feet wide. This is 29 feet wide.
So let me talk a little bit about that, because I didn't talk about this before. So yes, we are close to that front property line. Imaginary, you can't see that out in the field, right? So if you're driving by on North Lane, this looks like it's set back from the street that far, which is more than what you require, right? So we even provided you with a dimension on there for that purpose. So right there, we have 29 feet back from the edge of the road. So when you're driving on or walking by North Lane, which again, not many people ever do, it's a very low traveled roadway, but when you're on this roadway, it looks and feels that it's 29 feet away. It's not 5 feet away in your face over you. It's 29 feet away. And your setback is 35 feet. So before we came to you and put the application together, the garage was wider, what was it, 44 feet or something initially? 46, 50. And the depth? 30 by 50. So this started out as 30 by 50. And then we slowly went to 42 and 44. We're comparing the coverages, and that's how we arrived at the 40. But then we said couldn't really go for the 4 doors. You can see couldn't really go less than the 40-foot width to accommodate everything. So then we had to take the rest of it off of the depth of the garage. So you can see with the 4 doors, we can't really go any less wide, then he would lose a door. He really needs to have 4 doors on that frontage for his planned use. And so then we took a foot off the width. So what the board is asking is, yes, it's 29, would you consider something less? But I think before we go there, I think we just let Danielle go through her letter, talk to you about that. Again, we're not asking for a coverage
Just to be clear,
variance.
I'm not asking anything, I just was curious as to how you got to the number.
Yeah, no, it was a good point, because it reminded me that I had to show everyone that dimension, because it's important. It's 29 feet off the road, and it looks like it's 29 feet off the road. If we step this back, would anyone ever know that we're 5 feet back instead of 4 feet back off the property line? No, not unless they did an A2 survey and measured that correctly. So what passersby do see is this width, this distance. This is what they feel here. And this is actually more than this. And more than most structures in that whole neighborhood. Most of them are very close to the street or the road. This is actually 29 feet back from the street, but only a few feet back from the property line because the right-of-way here is so wide on this side.
The truth of the matter is, that road is so rarely used. I mean,
That's what I keep saying.
I will walk up and I will walk around just because I'm curious, but nobody goes there.
Right.
It's just like
It's basically a fire lane
Yeah.
for fire
Yeah.
trucks.
Right.
I'd like to, the way I'm considering it is the regulation we're asked to vary is just a setback regulation. You guys did what you could to get everything else lined up so there's no other issues. Usually coverage is something we're pretty stubborn about and isn't even close on this. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's a major issue. It may turn out there's another variance we have to consider later after we've had a conversation about the other issues with accessory building and whatever. But from what I've seen so far, you've got that working for you. You've only got a setback. The setback regulation for narrow street setback, the only logic I can see in that is if it has a tendency later to expand, there's no way that'll ever expand. That's never going to turn into a busier, wider road. Just no way. That's impossible.
No.
So I think it's not highly relevant, that issue about the way the setback's configured on your property. You have 3 of them, and they're all narrow street, and I don't think any of those roads are ever going to get widened.
No.
I lived on a road that was a perfect regulation for, because eventually they're going to put a bigger road in there. It's a dirt road that they're going to widen, and you have to worry about it. Here, I don't see that being
And there's plenty of
highly
room for fire
significant.
trucks to go by.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, many towns are actually removing, Old Saybrook, for example, removing the narrow street setback from the regulations. I don't know if that's part of the draft regulations or not, but it only applies, it was clarified a bunch of years ago, that doesn't apply to private roads, only town roads if the town ever expanded the street. But I agree with Kip that, that's never going to become a highway. There's railroad all on one side and it's all existing developed there, so the traffic's never going to change.
Is there a potential issue of the train tracks being expanded? And then you would have to move.
Not that we know, but if it did come, they wanted a tunnel under our town, as you know.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know where this is ever going to end up, but you can see that there's a lot of right-of-way with here. So even if that did come 20, 30 feet, they can't take away the public. Well, I guess they could. They're the federal government. Right? They take your road and make it a train track, but we still have a lot of width. It's 29 to the edge of the road, but then we have probably 40 to that side and another 15, 20 to the train track. So there's a good 60 plus feet in there.
It's right there, the train tracks and the cement things and the overpass are right up to the road.
Well, there's a
property line. They just put those
Yeah.
concrete
Yeah.
blocks in there
They're
this last year. And
Yeah, I
they told
saw
me
that.
It's like 25 feet from the center of the tracks, out on either side is their property.
I'm just saying there's no space on the other side of North Lane, but you're saying there is space on the south side of North Lane.
Yeah, there's plenty of space on this. I mean, we have over 40 feet from the north edge of the road to the structure. This is 29, the road's at least 11 wide, right? So 39, 40 feet there, but we still have a ditch on that side, and then we have a stone slope up to the train track, so there's more distance there.
It's actually
We
cement.
have at least 40
Yeah.
feet. Even if they put the railroad right along North Lane, we still have 40 feet.
Yeah, on the south side, okay.
Yep.
All right.
So with that, finally, if she's ready.
Good evening, my name is Attorney Danielle Burkiri. I work at the law firm of Brenner, Salter, and Wallman in New Haven at 271 Whitney Avenue. I'm really not quite sure how much more I have to say that we haven't already fleshed out, because we really have sort of gone through the standards required, for a variance. And I think we can all acknowledge and have that, not only is the lot unusually shaped, it has the 3 street frontages, which, I just don't come across often in my practice. And, additionally, although I understand that the residential use is a conforming use in the zone, it does, if we're to keep the residential structure with the septic, in addition to the multiple street frontages, I mean, any further development of the site is, essentially, null and void, and we're not going to be able to do anything. And I did, as we talked about it, and understanding that it's a large garage. That Mr. Lishing has a variety of vehicles, and most garages, I don't have a garage, but most garages are 2-car garages. But here, given his personal circumstances, we were looking for a larger garage.
I think if it was just a regular standard garage, I don't think you'd have any pushback whatsoever. I think it's the fact that it's so large for a residential accessory structure.
And that is, I think that's, I wouldn't call it the elephant in the room, where that's what we're talking about. But when we look at the variances that we're requesting, and I think we're going to have to get into that with Mr. Knapp and with counsel as to, going off the A2 survey and the size of the coverage for the house and the coverage for the garage, we don't need a variance for the accessory use. This house does not have a garage, and while we're talking about Frank and using his vehicles there, certainly the vehicles for the house could park in the garage. And one of the things two things I noted in my letter. One was the other large garage, which is, a commercial accessory use, so it might not be apples to apples as far as this structure. I think it just goes to the requirement of, the variance being in harmony with the neighborhood. And that while this is, a larger garage than most properties, given that it's a commercial zone, given that there are large garages in the area, it still is in harmony with the neighborhood. And what we're also accomplishing, which, at least in my practice, keeping affordable small residential units, throughout municipalities in Connecticut. Right now this house is being rented $1,000 a month, which is, just about what you get, which is considered naturally affordable housing. And so, it's not ideal, but it's, an irregular lot. So, we do have a large garage, but we are allowed to, we maintain the affordable residential unit.
What are the neighbors saying?
That was my third point, which I forgot about, so thank you for reminding me. I usually, Joe and I, when we have various applications, we have very angry neighbors. And here, to the contrary, I believe 3 of the nearby neighbors submitted letters in support. Those should be in the record.
Did we get those?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't see them. They're sticking out in the file. They're sticking in the file.
Yeah, I rearranged my bed.
This is just
It's at the very bottom.
This is one.
Yeah, I saw
This
it.
is
This is
one
one.
emailed out by Greg that you ran out of.
No,
Okay.
it's the ones with envelopes attached to the back of them.
It's attached to
Craig was out Tuesday, so I think we just emailed him out this morning.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
This is,
Okay, so the secretary, would you like to read these in the record?
From Mark and Sally Ann Wojtowicz. 25, more information. But we are writing this letter in support of Frank Lushing's appeal concerning his application for building a garage. We see no reason to deny his application. This is a commercial zone and we already have 2 neighbors with a 4-car garage. It is not out of character for the neighborhood. Sincerely, Mark and Sally Ann Wojtowicz, 310 Swan, sorry. I support Frank Lushing's and his application to build a 4-car garage at 307 in the C10 zone, case 25-5. I have seen his plans and it will be a nice looking addition to the area. Regards, Dmitry Tolchinsky, 286 Shore Road. And regarding the application for Frank Lushing's garage at 307 Swan Ave, we have no objection and feel the variance should be approved. I've been in Old Lyme for more than 80 years and I think that a garage in that location would be a good use of the property. Robert Sheffield, 306 Soundview Ave, Old Lyme, Connecticut.
Where's that? Where's
Here.
306.
Oh,
This is
there.
Sheffield
Okay,
right
there
here.
you go. Good, thank you.
Katie Corner. to the
Did
side.
anybody oppose?
No, we have no letters of opposition.
just a quick question, I guess, for the attorney. The one thing when we were going through the conversations about, it's big space, it's going to be heated for good reason. I think there's storing collectible cars there. Climate control is not a ridiculous thing, but has there been any conversations about a subsequent owner maybe trying to utilize that as living space? There is a half bath in there and it's going to be heated and cool. How do we condition that? Would you be okay to conditioning it so that cannot be a habitable space? Do we need to?
That would probably be a good idea.
Condition is fine, but it would not meet zoning and it would not meet health.
That's what
It would
I'm
be
just,
totally
and I'm saying it might be
So
relevant.
the
Maybe we don't need
Condition is
to.
totally fine.
Yeah.
And there were similar, not to get into the other garage, but there was a similar condition that was placed on a nearby garage, and that is one that Mr. Lishman would be.
You'd be fine with it?
that.
Well, it was in your letter. It was no dwelling allowed in this structure, and this one said heat only on the first floor, but you're saying you want heat and air conditioning on upper.
I think the heat is on the, it just might rise, I think is what
Okay.
he's saying. I don't think there's piping or anything.
Right, they have regular storage facilities that are climate controlled, so
Yeah.
there's a similarity there. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to have ownership creep where the next owner turns it into habitable space, and that we've conditioned it so it
Yeah.
doesn't turn into.
No, I think they would probably have to, if we put that condition on, come back before this board or before another
Right,
board
right.
in order to make.
But even without that condition, they couldn't do it without coming back to this board because.
Yeah.
Well,
They
we
could-
can do it legally without coming back.
Yeah, well, yeah, if they're willing and, we want to, let's put it in. Make it-
Yeah, I think it's just more specific to clarify
Yeah.
what the expectations are. So
Yeah.
there's no question later. Exactly.
I see your point about these different garages in the area, but when you're driving, when I drove, going down North Lane and coming down, I see little houses. I see a little neighborhood that is commercial, C10, but it looks like just a little neighborhood with little houses.
We're
That one garage, that one
surrounded by-
garage. You could-
No,
It is
we're
such a
surrounded.
Swan.
short road there that I think,
These 3 areas, we're surrounded on every corner.
yeah,
North,
if
south,
you
east,
sort of drive
southwest.
down the road, it's such a short
know what
road
they
there.
are.
But it's smaller than the size of the house on that property that I own.
The footprint.
So it's not any larger than a regular home, but that brand new house that
Yeah,
just put up,
accessory.
it's taller and bigger.
Accessory building, not,
Okay.
Well, I do think it's helpful that the neighbors, as I
And
said,
supporter.
Joe and I do applications where we have neighbors that are very vocal in their opposition. And I think it's unusual actually to have neighbors support a variance application.
I think we get more letters of support than
You do.
anything else in all the cases.
You
Yeah.
do.
Because you go out
Oh,
and
yeah.
Normally, my
see
clients
those.
say, people are going to
You
come out and
bring your
support, and they
friends.
don't.
Here, you're my neighbor, write this letter.
Well,
write
the
this
neighbors,
letter.
the neighbors are right around this property, and they said they feel that it's in harmony with the neighborhood they live in, so.
Yeah.
I think that's the best that we can do, and if you look at the map that we provided, you just go around this little U loop and they're through.
I guess-
Right there that are larger than this, and the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to are these color photos that we provided in here, and you could see that one looking to the southwest, there's just a large open space there with no building, so if you're driving by here, it just looks like a garage in the C10 zone, and you don't know it's on the same lot. By driving by, you have no idea.
Yeah, really, it's hidden in the back.
It's hidden in the back.
Driving by, that's not, you're not gonna see
But
that.
even if you walk by or drove by, you think it's on its own separate lot. If
Right.
you want to think in that, in that realm.
And there's no like privacy issues and things where we should ask for plant screenings or anything?
I don't-
Because we've done that before
There's
with
a
the
fence.
setback issues and
There's a
stuff.
fence
I don't
on
notice
here,
it.
there's a fence along this whole property, and you can
Oh.
see it in the photos.
It's back there, okay, yep.
6-foot high white vinyl solid fence with some plants in front of it along that whole south side.
Yeah. I guess I'm just still stuck a little bit on, is this the minimum required to alleviate the hardship of setbacks? And I
So
think
the
if it
only
was a,
setback that we're asked for is that front yard, so the only thing that
but
you would
almost the
reduce is the
entire
depth.
structure's in the setbacks. It's
It
not like,
has to be. Unless
I know,
there's-
but you could, I'm just saying a smaller thing, but I guess you're saying if the only one objects, and is it really an accessory and or subordinate or, of the, and also I worry about, allowing people to put accessory structures that are not on their own property where they're residing. Just because you own both properties, is this an accessory structure to the property that's on 307? Or is this an accessory
You
structure?
can't put an accessory structure on a property that's not attached. It's not accessory to anything. You can't have an accessory building accessory to a property that's not attached to this site. It's just not a thing. The whole definition of an accessory is to have
No, I
two buildings
understand,
on one site,
but I'm
one
saying-
subordinate to the
But
other.
I'm saying, like, so other people in town can own more than one property, and they say, well, I'm going to put an accessory structure on this other property that I own, if there's another dwelling there, even if they're not using it.
They can't legally do that.
Well, what's the difference here?
So in the C10 zone, if that house wasn't there, that garage is as of right. The only thing we're discussing is that it's incidental and subordinate accessory to that building. So if you demolish the house, you could have a garage in the C10 zone.
Well, and I would say this too, just before you speak out, that we have been talking about Mr. Lishing's sort of personal circumstances.
Yes.
And, that most people wouldn't want a 4-bay garage. But there is no existing garage in the house.
Yeah.
And so it is accessory, despite, the fact that he doesn't live there and what we're talking about, his specific circumstances. The garage is subordinate to the residential structure.
And the last thing I want to add, even if you took a foot or two off the depth, you can't take 10 feet off the depth, it just doesn't work for them. Even, it sounds like even 5 or 6 feet, you can't take it. But if you took a foot or two off there, when you drive by, you're not, unless you're looking at paper, you're not going to notice the difference because it's 29 feet off the edge of the road.
And
If it was
not,
30 feet versus 29, no one is going to know that without a survey map.
and it's not as if there's a garage, an existing garage here, and then we're adding another garage. So the cars for this house can park here.
Could. They're not going
He
to.
doesn't have room for his cars.
Right. Her point is just that it could be, and it's accessory too. If they had people over for a birthday party, they could park 3 cars in that driveway
Yeah.
if they wanted to.
There is no on-street parking on Swan Avenue there
No.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
visitors company.
Dan was just saying there's nothing that prevents them from parking in front of the garage or in the garage if there's a space empty. So, I agree that every day, they're going to park here in the driveway to be close to the house, but
Yeah.
nothing's preventing them from being able to park there if they wanted to.
I
if
guess
Frank
I'm
allowed
a
them.
little, I get attorney or ZBA CEO feedback on this is that normally when we have a variance is related to the hardship of the property, not the specific circumstances of an individual. Where it seems like everything is related to, and not to put you down or anything, but it's like not everybody owns 7 cars and motorcycles and things like that. So it's like, if other people come to us and say they want to have a much larger accessory structure because they have more stuff,
What we tell them is
Yeah.
our previous variances don't set any precedents.
And they never
Yeah.
work in our favor, but I think that goes to the question of, are we asking for a variance for the size of the garage? Right? So we'll just pretend it was a shed, and it wasn't a garage.
it
We're
would be
not,
smaller.
but to say Frank, I don't know, he had a tractor, he had a shed, he wanted a big shed on the property. And we weren't talking about his car collection. We would still be here asking for the setback variance. So we're in the
Maybe
set,
not as an extensive a one.
but possibly not, but
Right.
Storage,
the,
basically.
Yeah.
We're not
Storing
being,
vehicles.
we're not being asked to give you a variance for coverage at all.
the size.
No,
that's-
massive.
Oh, that's
It's
what
just
you're
for
saying.
Excess of
And
coverage.
I too, because I wasn't
That's
familiar,
the
I
Yeah,
thought,
that's a
wait,
big point.
it looks like it's far from the road, so after, working with Joe, I realized that it's this, what looks like a small setback, but, if,
So you're saying if somebody came to us and wanted to put in a big accessory structure and they didn't have the coverage, we'd be like, no.
Yeah, coverage
Coverage
is
would
one of
be
those
different.
things we don't move much.
Yeah, we don't.
There's
Right.
not much
See,
way
I
to
don't
interpret
understand why
it.
we have the problem, because
Yeah.
the coverage is not an issue.
Not at all.
And so why are we talking about it? The only issue is the variance to the street.
Right.
And there seems like there is a legitimate hardship to that.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we're being.
Well, the second
stuck on this.
issue is the overall size versus the size of the house. Is it accessory? I mean,
Well-
just visually, you can see,
Well,
visually they look.
He made it very clear that the A2 survey, or whatever the survey was, that the house is smaller.
Yeah.
He said that, so if we have to go with facts.
But then,
The facts say
this
that,
is where I want to
why are we
go.
debating that?
Well, why is he being
Can I
taxed at a
just,
lower
can I
rate?
say something? This, because the reason we're debating is because of the ZEO has a call on what variances are required. They can ask for certain variances, but then the ZEO is the one that decides what variances are required. So they're asking for one. The question I asked in the beginning is, do they need more than that?
Do they?
Oh, that's what we're going to ask the ZEO. Now that
Garrett's ready.
now that the presentation.
He's been very patient.
Yeah.
So I just talked to Frank and unwillingly, but he is willing after we talked, to take 1 more foot off the front of the garage. So if that helps, because that gives you an additional 40 square feet to be assured that it's
Oh.
smaller than that, and it gives you another foot off the property.
That's
You
helpful.
can't make it 5 feet or 7 feet because
Yeah.
the garage just doesn't work for his
Yeah.
need.
But,
He would rather
okay,
just not build it if he had to shrink it by that much. So 1 foot, he can't go any less than that. Again, instead of just 32 square feet under, now we're 72 square feet under, so it gives you a little bit
Claire, a
more
little
confidence
buffer.
and clarity.
Okay.
And we're still okay with the condition that, an affidavit is provided by the surveyor on his map that is smaller than the proposed structure.
Well, I think if you're
Take
confirming.
40 square feet off, we're pretty confident that it is.
Makes it
right?
obvious.
So, but I think then we're down to the question we asked in the very beginning is, what are the variances that are required? And it's not our call or your call, it's the ZEO's call.
Given the calculations that they have now proposed, I think it's clear that they are meeting 713, E rather. So they would not need that variance. So I think that they're asking for the right variance. And again, it is a judgment call for the board as to whether this size structure is truly accessory or not. But all E requires is to be smaller in square footage. They have given you evidence that it is smaller in square footage, and again, they're offering to shrink it further. So I think that we are obligated to go with the A2 survey calculations. And again, they have proposed a further shrinkage of the site. So I think that, yes, they are now within the 7.1E requirement to be smaller. So they do not require that variance, okay?
Okay.
So that's, I think I would withdraw any request that they submit, that they modify their application on that basis.
So how many feet is the house and how many feet is the garage now? Without that?
Well,
Could
that's,
you just have the numbers, please?
but
Yeah,
those are
so the-
incorrect numbers.
And
Those
again,
are
these
those
are,
numbers.
these are to the
Yeah.
eaves, our interpretation of the regs goes to
Yeah.
the trip line, but both of them are to the eaves. So right now, the house is 1292 to the eaves. And right now, the garage to the eaves is 1260. We're taking 1 foot off and 40 feet wide, so we're losing 40 square feet. So that would now put the proposed garage at 1220 versus 1260. 72 square feet less.
And I think if you don't go by the eaves, it goes from like 122 or 105, 1122 to 1105 to less than that, so which is still less than 1160. So no matter which way you calculate it.
And we're okay
it's
with
less.
that condition that there's an affidavit, if you so choose, that
Yeah.
there's an affidavit showing that it's less. But we're very confident, especially with this reduction, we were confident before, but
Yeah.
now we're 40 square feet even less.
Okay. So then the only last question I have is the fact that this is an accessory structure not being used by the residents on the property, but you're saying they can be used by the residents on the property. Is that an issue from the zoning perspective?
Again, their testimony is that this is not accessory to 75, it's not gonna run with 75's deed, it's going to run with the deed for this property, and therefore, I think it has to be treated as accessory to this property.
Okay, that was my last question.
Right.
All right.
Frank owns the property, he doesn't
Live
rent
there.
the house and someone else owns it, he owns this property, so it's accessory to his use. As the owner.
When I bought it 20 years
Whatever.
ago, I had 4 lots there. There are 4 lots there. The house is on one and there were 3 additional lots. And I combined them all and put them together so that nobody would ever accuse me of trying to subdivide them and sell them off or do something different with it. And that gave me the full square footage too. But I was in the storage business for like 35 years, and you mentioned storage, and that's what I did, and that's how I came to accumulating so much stuff. And now I retired this last August, so I need a place to put the stuff I have in storage where I no longer work. So,
Did you say you combined 4 lots to 15,000 square feet?
that property was for individual lots when I purchased it, and that's what it showed on
Wow.
the deed. They were all numbered separately.
Wow.
But
The
it was all
deed does
combined.
talk about 3 tracts. If you look at the deed,
Yeah.
there's tract 1, 2, and 3, and one of those may have been 2 parcels without reading the words, I don't know.
But if they're owned by the same person and they're on, or. no,
I
they're-
purchased it from
then
one
they're
person.
They got
merged.
legally combined,
Legally
Correct.
merged, yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is a good thing for the town.
Yeah.
That's over the 10,000.
You know, I'm a member of the Shoreline Gateway Committee, and, you know, it seems to me that, you know, this is kind of an improvement to our neighborhood, and we're looking for that. So that's another reason why I feel like, you know, let's help make this happen.
So I think if we just go through the discussion, so the unusual hardship is the 3 unusually shaped lot with the 3 narrow street setbacks.
Right.
Okay, that's a clear hardship. No one can argue that.
Give me a little sliver of the middle out.
Right.
Okay. There's no proposed reductions in legal nonconformity. The question is the minimum variance to address the hardship to allow reasonable use of an accessory structure. And this is where we're coming to, you've reduced it an additional foot to make sure that it's the minimum
40 square feet.
40 square feet.
Can I just say, shed number 2 is within, I think, 7 feet of the property line?
But it's small,
I know,
yeah.
but if you weren't looking for a give back,
But it's not
It's not unconforming.
not non-conforming.
right?
But anyways, and the coverage, I think the question, I think this really comes with, the minimum variance allowed hardship is that because it's way under coverage and,
Right, coverage shouldn't be our primary consideration in my.
and it would be under floor area as well.
We also stayed out of the second setback too. Originally, it was in that other street.
Yeah, then
So-
that would, good idea to stay away of. The less variances, the better.
Correct.
And I like the fact that they put the drainage in, you know, even
Oh,
though.
yeah.
That's a plus.
That's an other, that's, you know,
Yeah.
added
It's on my list of
improved
positives.
drainage. Are you capturing this as I'm going through it?
You bet.
Thank you.
I got it.
It was good.
All right,
Thank you.
but I think the thing is, it's fits with the neighborhood because it's a commercial district with other similar structures.
Even larger.
Yeah, but they're on different properties and stuff like that.
Similar is
Similar stuff. You go with it.
Let's go with all right. And I think another thing is that it's the minimum street setback that it's being encroached upon has a wider right of way than normal. Would you agree? So the point is, even though it's a narrow street setback, the right of way in that area is the largest along that street. I don't know. That's
At
probably
29 feet or something?
You mean the distance between the edge of the road and the property line?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can
'Cause
see the difference here. Swan is less than 10 feet, and this is probably 20
Right.
or more.
Yeah.
Same on this.
So this is where I'm trying to get to the in harmony with intent purposes around zoning regulations. So this is the key one in my mind. Anyone offering up how this is in alignment with intent and purposes of zoning regulations? How this is in alignment with the intent and purposes of
It is in a commercial neighborhood.
Right.
You are
It's in-
having
it's a
use
C10.
that alleviates the need for him to try and rent space somewhere else.
But that's not.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you look at the pictures, it's a huge blank space there.
Yeah, right.
So it's not like it's intrusive in the sense that, oh my God, that's so close to this or that. And,
Right.
setback requirements to me are about how much you're intruding into the neighboring properties. And I can't
That's
see
not the
that
case.
at all here.
No, it's not the case.
I think
A
so.
lot
So
of it is
it's a C10 district, and it's adjacent to the railroad
Yeah,
tracks,
that's a good thing.
basically.
Yeah.
What else are you going to use this
Right.
for?
You're not intruding on the.
Yeah.
It's not intruding on any
people going by in a
neighbors.
train
Not
field.
intruding in the neighbors.
Can I ask, those cinder blocks, are they marking anything particular with this garage?
Oh, no. The
They were just-
Amtrak
four-
put that in.
No, he's talking-
in your.
Oh, yeah,
in the yard.
I tried to eyeball it myself because I wanted to see where it was gonna lay. I mean, it's
And
not
so-
accurate. It's just
But
a
it's
tape measure
close.
thing. Yeah, it actually needed to go 5 or more feet to the west. Because we originally were going 30-foot setback from Old Colony, and it's 35. But yeah, just to give me a visualization of how I'm gonna try to pack my stuff in there.
That's a good visualization.
And
for
I
us,
tried
too.
I put the car in there and I go, okay, I got this much more room to get a lawnmower and a couple of motorcycles in
think-
there and that kind of thing.
So I think the key one for me was how this is in harmony with intent and purposes of zoning regulations, because it is a big accessory structure. But I think we've captured it is that it's in character with the C10 neighborhood,
Right.
and it's adjacent to the railroad tracks. So it's really not for any other.
Not intrusive.
And the,
Not
and the
intrusive, not
neighbors that
intrusive.
responded are all favorable.
And it should be
That's
safe to drive through there, so like, it looks like a pinch point, but with that 29 total feet or whatnot, that
Yeah.
fire trucks could get through and whatnot.
Right.
You know,
I
or
think
if
that
they can
helps.
make the turn, but
If they
it's,
can make the corner.
there's-
Yeah.
So before we close the public hearing, we're going to open up to public comments. Unless you want to summarize what we've captured so far, because once we close the public hearing, we can't ask any more questions.
You want me to read what I have for
Yeah.
In Harmony? So
Yeah.
for In Harmony with Intent and Purpose of Zoning Regs, it fits the neighborhood as it is in character with the C10 district, and it is adjacent to the railroad tracks and not intruding on any neighboring properties. We also have the distance between the edge of the road and the property line is 29 feet. I don't know if you
I don't
want
think
to
we
change
need that, no.
Okay.
And then the other things was that it was added improved drainage to the property and supported by the neighbors. Supported by 3 neighbors.
I've got that under other.
As I'm saying,
Yeah. Oh, and supported by the neighbors. Got
So-
it.
I
by
think
3
that extra width makes all the difference to me, and it should be in there. That it's
Okay.
not 5 feet off the road for. you
Maybe
know,
we can
fire
capture
trucks to
that-
get through in
we
the
can
future.
capture
There's a
that in,
reason for a narrow road.
where the minimum variance to address the hardship is required, is that, well, it could capture it.
So right now we've got reduce the design an additional foot to bring the total reduction to 40 square feet. It is significantly under coverage and it is under floor area. And then you wanted to add,
That the distance between the narrow road, the right-of-way,
Property line and the
I
road?
think you can frame it as the effective setback.
oh,
Due to the 40-foot right-of-way, the effective setback from the street line is whatever.
29 feet.
30.
Well, it'll be,
From the property line, I think.
no, from the street, from the street.
29 is from the south edge of the road to the building.
And now it's 1 foot cut off, it'll be 30 feet,
Correct.
30 feet. That's a nice round number.
okay, so then the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet?
Yeah.
I'm missing something though.
The only other thing I said was due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
Thank you. I knew I was missing something.
And do we want to amend?
Well, let her just capture it before you
Okay.
can.
Okay, so the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
Okay, and we talked about the hardship already, and we talked about the neighbors improving, and the degree conditions of approval is reduce width 1 foot.
Do we want to put that on a plan, or is it adequate for you?
Well, no, we're gonna need an amended plan that shows the reduction there, so that we can have our sign the amended plan with that reduced reduction.
It should say the depth, though, not the width. The
Oh,
width
sorry,
is left,
right,
depth
the
is-
depths, sorry. Reduce steps by 1 foot to make it, how many feet
40
behind?
square feet less.
28, it'll go from 29 to 28 feet deep by 40.
28 by 40 feet. And that, ensure that I don't think we need this, that
Garage
The-
footprint is smaller than the house footprint.
correct.
Do you want to keep that in there?
Yeah, I'll keep it there because it's one thing that was agreed to.
So I have here, Mr. Wren, I can say the applicant will ensure that the garage footprint is smaller than the house footprint.
Right. I mean, we talked about having the condition of no residential use in this,
Right.
you know, I mean, I don't think it's necessary, but I mean, it's not gonna hurt, and he's agreed.
I think the
so-
thing is, when other people have accessory structures, it's a good idea to just make it clear
Yeah.
that they can't.
That's why I brought it up.
That was part of the
Good.
logic of how we looked at.
Yeah.
these.
Right.
The state of Connecticut would want 4 units in that.
Okay.
Low-income
There will
housing.
be no residential.
Laws are gonna-
One houses.
Right. So clarify this, no residential use of the structure. Did we capture any other conditions that we're missing? Oh,
So a garage is a residential use. So I don't think that's the right term.
Oh.
Living
I don't know whether-
habitable space.
I don't know whether habitable space accomplishes it in a plan, I'm not sure whether.
I think habitable space is gonna accomplish it here.
No habitable space
Because
in the ground.
we use that for the flood zone purposes. Habitable space is a known term under a reg, so I think that'll work here.
A bathroom's not
Oh,
habitable
for heaven's
space.
sakes.
No. I
This is a
mean,
half bath. and
Yeah.
Just a
I
toilet and
just
a
mean
sink.
for semantics.
Yeah.
No, we're
you know.
limiting, I mean, the theory is by saying this cannot be used as habitable space, they can't come back later and say, well, it's got heat in the bathroom, so we want to convert it to a guest house.
Right.
They're saying now they will not attempt to do that in the future, even if they otherwise might be able to do so.
And I think by building code, they don't count bathrooms as habitable space, like storage.
No, but
I think we're safe, is what I was saying, we're
Yes.
agreeing.
Under as presently configured. However, my regs as currently drafted, and we'll see what the next round is, would allow potentially this to be a guest house, not a accessory apartment, but a guest house. Okay, because it could have a bedroom and a bathroom, and that would all be all you'd need for a guest house. But we're saying, under our conditions here, you're not gonna come back later and try and get someone staying in there even as a guest house. This is not gonna be habitable space,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
No problem.
So we talked about hardship, we talked about the minimum variance, we talked about agreed conditions of approval, we talked harmony purposes, zoning regulations, and then when we get to the close of the public hearing, after we hear public comments, the evidence presented during the public hearing and the reasons articulated by the board in the public hearing and voting session. All right. So with that, if you'd like to anything else, otherwise I want to open up to public comments.
The only thing I'd like to add is that I tried to design the outside of that garage to look more like a home from the outside when people are driving around that neighborhood. And the only thing the only people that'll be seeing those doors are Amtrak drive flyers They're going back and forth.
That's a good thought,
You know,
thank
and
you.
it's not any larger footprint than the little tiny house that I own on that lot.
Yeah,
And the other little residents that are in that area.
I
Just,
think you,
know, I got windows up on the second
Right,
floor,
right.
so
That was a good
it,
folksy wrap-up of the whole thing.
that was
good.
very good, I like
you
that
know,
too.
little door now, flower pots on the little concrete pad around the outside, makes it look homey.
30 by 50.
A couple of chairs to sit out there, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I try to take care of the place. I take a lot of pride in my stuff, and it's not gonna turn into a dump.
Okay,
Or
thank
anything
Myself
like that.
personally, I like the idea that you did deal with the permeability issues and try and make it so watershed wasn't a problem.
All right, so now I'm going to open it to public comment.
Sure.
Okay. Would anybody like to speak in favor of this application? Please come up and state your name and address. And you have to come all the way up because the recorder's here.
Hi, Dennis Maluzzo, 7 Portland Avenue, friend of Frank's and Joanne's for about 40 years now. Resident of the area, jealous because he's got a lot that big that could support a garage or an accessory building. We both ride motorcycles. I'm really jealous because I have to try and get my bike into a tool shed. I think this is an excellent addition to the area. And as Amtrak is rebuilding the tracks from New Haven and Washington, D.C., all the way to Boston, Acela is going to go so fast, they're not even going to be able to see that building at night. It's going to be a great addition. I'm glad he's doing it. He's on it, you know, he's only got how many more years left to do this project. So I'm in full support, and a lot of people in Soundview are in full support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this application?
Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak opposed to this application? Would anybody like to just comment on this application? Okay. That did remind me of one other thing. Did we want to? No, I don't think we want to go there. Oh, never mind.
We have to close.
I know, but I'm just saying, did anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns that we want to bring up? And if not, then I would say, would anybody like to make,
I'll make a motion to close public comment.
I'll second.
wait, close the public hearing for this case 25-5, 307 Swan. We do that because sometimes we have multiple cases.
All right,
Okay,
so moved.
So
okay.
it was Kathleen and then Kip?
No,
Kathleen, or it was Brian, I think.
Brian.
Brian? Okay, sorry.
Close the public hearing for case 25-5, 307 Swan Avenue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstaining? None. Motion passed unanimously 5-0. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. So only voting members may participate in deliberations. No new information may be introduced after the close of the public hearing, but members may ask the ZBA attorney and staff procedural questions. And the board usually discusses the evidence presented during the public hearing, potential conditions of approval agreed by the applicant, and potential reasons for granting or denying the variances prior to making a motion. And I think that we've sort of discussed that during the open public hearing. Maybe at this point in time, we can just have Amy recap what we've sort of come to consensus on.
Okay, so for unusual hardship or legal alternative to unusual hardship, you said it was an unusually shaped lot with 3 narrow street setbacks.
Yeah.
There were no proposed reductions in legal pre-existing nonconformity. Minimum variance to address hardship and allow reasonable use. They reduced the design an additional foot to bring the reduction to total reduction to 40 square feet.
Maybe that's not to bring the
because it was from
the additional foot.
It was from
Bring it-
1160 to 1120 now?
Yeah.
so reduce the
Do we just
The
need to
width.
say reduce the width?
The depth.
The depth.
depth is what I meant.
Yeah.
Reduce the depth an additional foot to bring the.
I don't think we need to say that.
Okay, so I've got here.
Oh, because it'll make the depth 30
Make the
feet.
setback that much wider than it otherwise would be, so.
Yeah. But it also means the depth of the building would be reduced to
28 instead of 29.
28. So the distance from the road will become 30 feet.
So we do have the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
Okay.
And then we have it is significantly under coverage and it's under floor area. So
That's-
when you say reduce the depth an additional foot to
Just
what?
Just to say we reduce the additional foot.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it is significantly under coverage and it's under floor area. And the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
And the effective setback to the street is increased to 30 feet because it was 29 feet now. And then.
So the effective setback to the street line is increased to 30 feet. How about the due to the 40-foot
Then I don't think we need
right-of-way?
that.
So I don't think in that particular clause, you're talking about what they gave the extra foot. I think functionally speaking, you're talking about that area is so wide that it is accomplishing the purpose of the regulations, even though it technically doesn't. So I don't think you should be comparing it to what the proposal was in the reduction. I think you should be comparing it to the regulation. So
I see.
So I think it should be the effective setback is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way. So I don't think you're talking about the reduction there in that clause.
Okay, she's saying make it 2 sentences.
Okay, so the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way. And we already have, the first sentence is reduce the depth an additional foot.
Yep. Is now 30 feet due to the 40-foot setback.
But
So 2 separate thoughts, right?
Okay.
One clause is the thought that they offered during the course of the public hearing, a reduction of the depth of the structure. Complete thought.
Yeah.
And the other is the fact that the effective setback is this.
30 feet.
Right. So I think you have both thoughts independently.
So we've got
2 paragraphs.
reduce the depth an additional foot. It is significantly under coverage and it's under floor area. And then the effective setback to the street line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
I don't think you need the 30 foot, the 40, just to say is now becomes 30 feet. Do you need to say because of the 40-foot right away?
Well, it makes it clear.
I think you should be talking about what they are building versus what the regulation is, not, it's. So I'm not gonna object to putting in that they've reduced the building depth a foot.
Yes.
Because they've accommodated some of your concerns. However, they've also reduced it more than that based on what his original desire is from. So you're sort of starting from an arbitrary desire rather than a regulation
I see.
or a setback or whatever. So again, it was something that was offered to you that may have led you to your decision, so I don't have a problem with the reduction of the depth to being 28 being in there. But just conceptually speaking, you're not talking, like, that isn't the moving target, because otherwise you could theoretically say that, I think originally it was going to be 30 by 50, right? So the desire, the original desire versus where they are today isn't really relevant. The clause that talks about the effective setback is just that. Regardless of whether they came in here saying
I see what you're
28
saying.
or whether they said it today.
Yeah, it felt like the motivation was to get it, so it was, we were all convinced that the new building is smaller than the old one, so that's how the foot line.
Right. I think the reduction of the depth was more towards the accessory structure conversation and
Yeah.
to give you comfort that it was in fact accessory because of the size.
But I'm saying, I'm just trying to clarify. So the effective, I'm just saying numerically how it makes sense is that the effective right of way is now 30. The effect, not the right, effective
But it's not,
setback
but
is
it's not now because you're not changing it from a current condition to what it will be.
yeah.
Right? So as opposed to when you're talking about reductions of nonconformities, then you could talk about the, like, they're giving up something
Yeah.
and then the setback is, there's nothing there now.
Okay, but I'm trying to say, so we're trying to say that the effective, because of the width of the right of way from North Lane, the effective setback is 30 feet.
Right.
So maybe we should say it that
To
way.
the building.
Yes.
Like as
Okay,
opposed to
that's
the
what
property
setbacks-
line.
That's the relevant setback,
Okay.
so.
But is that minimum to address hardship and allow reasonable use? I mean, they didn't, for the effective setback to the street, if I'm understanding this correctly, they didn't do anything. We're saying there's 30 feet.
We're saying that makes it's the effective setback to the north lane is 30 feet.
Contributes to logic of why we're allowing the variance that there is there.
That's-
But you're saying this is not the minimum, it's just,
It just is that's why you're allowing it. That was my understanding of it.
maybe it's because that fits under harmony of intent and purposes of zoning regulations.
So maybe move this sentence over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yes.
It's the concept of is it in alignment with intent and purposes of zoning regulations, because even though this actual setback is going to be 7 feet instead of 6 feet, the effective setback is 30 feet because of the width of the right of way.
Right.
That's what she's getting at, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now we have, for minimum variance to address hardship and unreasonable use, they reduce the depth an additional foot.
228 feet wide.
To,
Deep, sorry, I keep saying that.
and then they are significantly under coverage and under floor area.
Right.
Agreed conditions of approval, reduce the depth by 1 foot to make the dimensions 28 feet by 40 feet. The applicant will ensure that the garage footprint is smaller than the house footprint and the structure will have no habitable space.
Yeah.
In harmony with intent and purpose of zoning regs, it fits the neighborhood as it is in character with the C10 district and is adjacent to the railroad tracks. I got to run on sentence here. It is not intruding on any neighboring properties. I know it's run on, I'll wordsmith it. The effective setback to North Lane, the North Lane line is 30 feet due to the 40-foot right-of-way.
Yeah.
There you go. So they got it.
Right, and then the other is the
I mean, it
added
really doesn't matter.
improved drainage and supported by 3 neighbors.
Yeah,
No one's appealing it anyway, I suspect. So
Yeah, but I'm just saying, we don't know what's coming 5 years down the road.
Yeah, so added improved drainage to the property and it is supported by 3 neighbors.
And then the evidence presented during the public hearing and the reasons articulated by the board within the public hearing or voting session. Okay,
Do we really want to list that they decreased by a foot? Like as a,
Well, I think you're gonna have to, because one of the things you're gonna be asking for is,
Oh, it's
okay,
a
the
new
version of
plan.
map.
yeah.
okay. So that's
I
a
have to
condition?
stamp and sign something.
Because at one level, that's a trivial thing, but it's a thing that we actually have to enforce here, that it's.
Yeah, it's after the fact, after our decisions, it helps people later down the road. To be
Well,
that
and it also
I'll tell you
explains
why.
why we're getting a new map
Right.
after this hearing, right? Because otherwise she'd be signing as submitted, and she's not gonna sign as submitted, she's gonna sign as amended.
So do we need to say that they need to submit new plans with the
That reflect
modified
the reduction in size, yes, you're gonna need to say that.
as
because-
as a condition?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's go back to the conditions.
Okay, so reduce the depth by 1 foot.
Just add at the end, so we'll say, no, you just say add at the end, the applicants will submit revised plans with the proposed modification.
So you may want to just make that like a standard condition going forward, that just
Yeah,
plans consistent with what the proposal is that was approved,
Yeah.
and submitted for signature or something to that effect.
okay.
So you want to change that? If the applicant will submit a revised plan with the proposed modification, you want to submit it to something generic?
No, but,
Like
and we
somebody
can,
just said?
she's just saying we should always, every time they modify
Okay.
In the
it.
future, yeah.
So you're
But
happy
she
with
said
that?
so the applicant will submit revised plans for the proposed modification for signature for signing by the chair or something like that.
Yeah, for signature of the chair.
Yeah. Okay, so
Got
then,
it.
I would need to hear the conditions at least at this point.
okay,
So it's reduce the depth by 1 foot to make the dimensions 28 feet by 40 feet. The applicant will ensure that the garage footprint is smaller than the house footprint. The structure will have no habitable space. The applicant will submit a revised plan with the proposed modification for signature of the chair,
by the chair.
by the chair.
Are we okay?
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
I'm
Okay,
not enforcing it.
with that in mind, would anybody like to make a motion? Let me just walk through it, okay. To grant with conditions the requested variance to section 8.9.7. We've decided there's no other variances.
That's true.
To allow construction of now it'll be 28-foot by 40-foot detached garage with half bath on a C10 lot with existing 3-bedroom year-round dwelling for the revised site plan prepared by Indigo Land Design. And what would the date be?
You're going to list the date now as revised.
As revised today.
Well, you take the date off the plan and just say as revised.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, so dwelling per the site plan prepared by Indigo Land Design LLC.
Dated
Dated
revised. Dated to give whatever the date is on this plan.
This plan was April 2nd, 2025.
Fine, and you're going to put that in right now, yep.
As revised.
As revised. Okay?
Revised. And the floor plans and elevations. Now, there was no name of the architect on the plans. So do I have to say
Elevations.
the elevations and floor plans? There's nothing here that says who made this.
No, it's not in the corner beneath my name on the 45. I thought his name was in there.
No.
Through staff, Jerry Carpuska.
In that corner?
He has a date, but he didn't put his name on.
Yeah, it's a date. I have a date.
Okay, I know Jerry Karpuska, so we can indicate Jerry Karpuska.
Okay. All right, so elevations prepared by Jerry.
Karpuska. Karpuska.
Did you get that?
I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
I know where it is.
Okay.
And it's Jerry G.
And dated,
Oh, missed that.
Okay.
oh, sorry, got that.
Got that now. Yeah.
And dated March 21st, 2025, as revised April 1st, 2025, and to be stamped and signed by the ZBA chair.
Through staff, that should be as revised.
Yeah, I was
As-
just gonna throw that in.
Oh,
Right.
right.
The point is-
As revised, and then I'll put today's date.
No. You're going to put today's, as revised. As revised.
As
The
revised.
point being is, you're giving the date of the plan now, but you're saying it's going to be revised. So
All right, and one of the conditions is they submit revised plans.
there we go.
Okay.
So you're just saying the date of the plan as revised.
Okay.
So I really don't want to ask a question. All right.
No, it's-
So, but it's
dated April 2nd, as revised, and the floor plans and elevations prepared by Jerry Karpuska. Is that also revised?
No, but at revised at the end, and dated,
Okay, and dated 3/21/25 as revised.
Yes.
That's already in there.
Okay.
And then 4/1.
but no, because it was dated March
Oh, and
31st, and
amended.
then it was revised April 1st,
Yep.
and now we're revising it again.
Don't worry
That
about it.
condition date's gonna be irrelevant.
So through staff to clarify, I would just say dated March 31st, revised through April 1st, or whatever.
Well,
that
yeah, and again, I would just, I don't even think we need to go there. Just say, I would put the date, and then you're just gonna say as revised, because it's gonna be revised again. And we don't know the date it's gonna be revised,
So
because,
should I put the date, the most recent date,
Yeah.
April 1st, 2025, not the March?
You don't normally repeat multiple revisions, you're just putting in when it is and when it's revised through, and I think it's clear based on the context of the rest of the motion. So I would agree with Eric and say whatever the date is.
But there's two dates on the
Yeah,
plan.
before-
April 1st.
April 1st.
April 1st, which
Okay.
it's not the March 31st.
No.
Newest date.
Whatever the date, whatever the first.
The first date.
The
So
first-
3/31/25 as revised.
Okay.
3/31/25 as revised.
Okay.
Why not the most recent?
Because-
I mean, they might have made
because-
revisions to that,
Because
right?
the revision dates, you keep adding new revision dates. So only the last revision date is gonna be the important revision date. So the date is the first date of the plan, and everything after that is as revised.
Yeah.
So if you started with one plan and you made significant changes, and then you now
Revise
come
it
to the
again.
meeting and have yet another, why not go to the back, I mean legally,
Well,
if it's not legally, why
okay.
not go to the last revision?
Because if that were the one she were going to sign, I would say you're right. But that's not gonna be the one she's signing. She's gonna sign a future one yet to be written.
So this revision is
So-
irrelevant.
So this revision is not, for our purposes, going to be the final, it's not going to be the revision of record. So plans go with a start date and then revised through whatever your end date is. The intermediate ones, for your purposes, are going to be irrelevant to the record here. This is going to be in the records, I mean, in the file, but your final one is going to have a final revision date, and all the intermediate ones are not going to count at that point.
Yeah, right on. That's why I stamp and sign this. We know which one we're talking about. Okay,
The
so
other way that I would refer this to is that sentence, what you're saying in that sentence is you're just titling the thing that Nancy is signing, okay?
Oh, it's
So
not- yeah.
that's the thing that, because in that sentence, right,
Yeah.
the map you're titling is the thing that Nancy is signing. You're not listing the things that you saw today, or the things that are in the
Okay.
record.
Oh, because they're in the
The
record.
record is obviously relevant, and Eric will look at the record to make sure that there's no other changes or whatever. But in your sentence, what you're talking about is the thing that Nancy is signing. And the way we would refer to that is just the beginning and the end.
As revised, okay.
So dated March 31st, 2025, as revised, to be stamped and signed by the ZBA chair.
And then we go through the conditions that we went through.
Yep, and the conditions are, where did I put them? Reduce the depth by 1 foot to make the dimensions 28 feet by 40 feet. The applicant will show that the garage footprint is smaller than the house footprint. The structure will have no habitable space, and the applicant will submit a revised plan with the proposed modification for signature by the chair.
Okay, I think we're there.
Okay. Okay, would anybody like to make that motion? I saw Brian, but he
I'll
doesn't.
second.
Let's let our alternates do it. Brian and Kathleen. What'd you say?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay.
And I second.
Okay, got that. Brian and Kathleen.
Got it?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstaining? None. Motion passed unanimously 5-0. Thank you for working through a very complicated plan with, and I appreciate the effort that you took to explain it all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, so now, that was our only case tonight, so I'm just gonna quick zoom through a few things. We need to, 7 Champion Road, everybody knows that application was withdrawn. Okay. There's no old business. The new business is receipt and setting of public hearings for new applications. Case 25-8C, 67 Center Beach Avenue, to replace a 10 by 12 shed with a 17 by 21 garage on a non-conforming R10 lot in the AE12 flood zone. Coastal site plan review application was submitted. And I just wanted to mention that it's almost complete.
The only thing missing at this point are the assessor's cards. If we were promising assessor's cards by today, they didn't turn, they come in,
But they were-
I'm not worried that we're not gonna get the assessor's cards.
Okay, so I think that we can receive and schedule the public hearing for July 17th. People are okay with
That's
that?
the Campion Road.
No, this is
No,
a,
this is the
no.
other one. This is
Center-
Center-
Champion Road was
Withdrawn.
withdrawn.
Oh, forever.
Forever.
Well, yes,
Gone.
well,
Well,
not-
until
yeah,
until they submit, for now.
yeah, forever's a long time.
But that app, 25-7C is gone.
Yes.
Okay.
And now, so we're going to receive and schedule the public hearing for case 25-8C, 67 Center Beach Avenue for July.
Center Beach.
Now, the applicant, this is unusual. The applicant has requested the variance application fee be waived, quote, as I paid them previously but was very unprepared for my first hearing that lasted all of 2 minutes. And I would just like to point out that prior application was drawn in October 2024 after extensive interactions with staff over several months. The cost of publishing public notices have been incurred, and a 20-minute public hearing was held with guidance provided by the board and ZBA attorney. So I guess the question is, does the board feel we should waive someone for being unprepared?
How do you feel about it?
I think Craig's already asked for the money, so I think Craig and I are pretty much of the opinion that his lack of being prepared is not a reason for you to
Yeah,
waive the
exactly.
application.
Yeah, you guys still had to go all that march.
Yeah.
Well, not just that, the amount of
What's the
time
point of the
that you've
fees?
spent with this man it can be measured in like double-digit hours at this point in time.
Who is this guy?
Well, I don't know if we should talk
Okay,
about
say
it.
that.
We'll get-
No,
we'll get-
it's
It's a
67
pending
cent
application.
each.
Do we need to vote on this?
I'm saying, so my question was, did anybody want to make a motion to vote, to make a waive it? And I think if no one does, I don't think we need to make a motion.
Well,
there's a
we
request
voted
that's
down. right?
Oh, okay.
Since there's a request that's been made, I think you should address it for transparency and other
Yeah.
reasons.
Okay, so then, do we make a motion positively and then just vote against it, or do we make?
That's what we did last
And that's
month.
what last time,
with
this time, I don't think it's gonna
something,
be a close motion. So I think
Yeah.
if everyone agrees, just say.
The motion's made not to waive the variance, a motion, would anybody like to, anyone to make?
To be
Yeah.
positive.
Right.
Okay.
Motion to waive.
I make a motion, we waive the fees for this new
Case 25-8C.
Yeah.
Voting in favor?
We need
We have a
a second.
second.
Oh, seconded, that was Kip, no, that was, who?
Okay, I'll. second
Stephanie, Kip and Stephanie? Okay, voting in favor? No one. Abstaining? No one. I forgot opposed. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the motion failed. Okay, we're done that. And then there's another new case, 25-9, 48 Connecticut Road, to renovate and add a half-story to an existing one-story, three-bedroom dwelling located in a non-conforming R10 lot in the AE11 flood zone. It's a very complete application, I think, so I think can receive it and schedule it for July 17th, 2025. Feel okay with that?
What's the number up to? Just two at that point?
There's just two, yeah. Okay. So then, zooming along to chair update, so it is here, and you've got this note from Craig. We need to vote regarding continued engagement of Sylvia Rakowska as ZBA attorney with a $10 per hour increase in her fee for fiscal year 2025 to 2026. And before we discuss it, I'd just like to preface the ZBA discussion with my perspective that based on my 10 years of interactions with land use attorneys, not just Old Lyme ZBA, I find that Sylvia provides excellent, clear, and timely legal guidance that is well-informed and cost-effective. She has helped the ZBA improve our processes, and engaging her proactively as legal questions arise is much less costly than the cost of an appeal.
I'd like to make a motion to approve of that salary increase.
Okay,
Second.
Do I need, I was gonna make a more specific motion to agree to continue engagement of Attorney Rakowska
Yeah.
of the Arch Law Group as ZBA attorney for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 per the terms and conditions of her email letter to the board dated June 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Okay, Kathleen.
Stephanie and Brian both.
Yeah,
Brian.
So Brian, okay.
yeah, Kathleen and Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Abstaining? None. Motion passed unanimously 5-0. Okay, and I just want to say, the updated ABC guidance document was distributed by email June 2nd, but Brian has hard copies for everybody who wants one.
Yes.
Did you give it out to everybody yet?
Is that what this is?
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It looks beautiful. Okay, and then I just wanted to let people know, if people are interested, because people sometimes have been asking me questions, and we try to answer questions at the meetings ourselves, and we've taken some training. There's a very helpful book. It's called What's Legally Required by the Connecticut land use attorney Mike Zidka. And it says, a guide to the legal rules for making local land use decisions in the state of Connecticut. And it's really helpful if anybody wants it. And I just want to say, I have information on how you can buy it, but if you want to just borrow my copy and scan through it at
The
some
land
point.
use office has a copy as well, you can borrow if you.
I just wanted to offer it up to you and let people know, because sometimes, as you get into it a little bit more, you have some questions, and sometimes you can't answer them all at the meeting. You could have some information.
Can you get that on? Can I get that online? Buy it, pay for it.
Yeah, yes.
Can you email us
Yes,
that out?
yes,
And
I will
go to
send the
that?
link. It costs $35, and it's all proceeds from the sale of the book support the educational programs of the Yukon Clears Land Use Academy. So it's not a profit-making thing, so it's really.
What's it called? What's
Which academy?
legally?
What's legally required?
The Yukon Clear Land Use Academy.
Okay, that's good.
And I will send the link of where to buy it to everybody. I just think it's nice to have. But if you don't want to buy it, you can borrow mine. Anybody want to borrow it today? Okay. Correspondence and announcements, notice of the zoning regulation change removed from section 5.10.3, the following special permit use permitted in the Z30 zone, retail dealer station for sale of motor vehicle fuels. And then I did have, going on to the meeting minutes, before you approve the minutes, I did have a proposed change to the ZBA meeting minutes. I know you weren't here last time, so it's kind of hard to get it all right. So I was going to suggest, I just kind of reworked 2 paragraphs on page 4, and I was going to read it to you and see if everyone's okay with it. Attorney Carey submitted Exhibit 1, a copy of a special town meeting minutes dated April 15, 2024, which shows that the Old Lyme Affordable Housing Commission has the authority to present the variance application on behalf of the town. And then Mr. Metcalf, professional engineer, explained that when the lots were created, there was not a requirement for a lot frontage on a town or private road, and the lot frontage on the 50-foot right-of-way was allowed. The subdivision regulations and town road ordinance prevent the right-of-way from becoming a town or private road because there is not an adequate area at the end for a turnaround. If the variance is granted, access to the parcels will go through the town's... Okay. If the variance is granted, access to the parcels will go through the town's subdivision review process that includes reviews by the Planning Commission, Fire Marshal, and Town Engineer to ensure safety and adequate access to the properties. Both lots have 25 feet of frontage on the right-of-way. The property configuration and deed restrictions prohibit additional housing lots from being added later. These 2 lots are designed for the creation of affordable housing, helping to support a town goal. If people are okay with that, I was going to suggest we just... It just kind of like made it a little clearer, I thought. What?
I was before you go to the minutes, I just wanted to do one thing about the regulation change. We'll get that.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I said, if people are okay with that, I was going to suggest we make a motion to approve the May 15, 2025 meeting minutes with the amendments proposed.
So moved.
Stephanie,
Second.
Kip. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Abstaining? None. Motion passed unanimously 5-0. And you wanted to get to something about the...
Yeah, you don't have to say anything. However, again, the zoning commission transmitted to you the proposed amendment to the regs, which is taking out gas stations from the C30 zone, the only zone it's permitted in. If you have any comments you'd like to get back to the zoning commission regarding that proposal, this is your chance to do so. You're not required to give any comments, but again, they will be taking it up at their next meeting as a public hearing.
So they're saying taking gas stations out of that zone?
Yes. As a future special permit use. The existing 4 gas stations in town would continue to be there as a grandfathered use, but you couldn't have new gas stations beyond the 4 you already have.
I'm good with that.
So still, in the past, sometimes you've told us as a board not to comment so much, but as individuals to comment. What is your advice on this now?
My vague recollection is that I may have given you like a 1-sentence, just so that the commission knows that you looked at it and have decided to not respond. I guess the caveat is if all of you agree about an issue that the commission should review or determine or whatever else, then you can comment. What I found is rarely with regulations does everyone agree exactly one with the other, and then it gets a little wonky.
Yeah.
And sometimes it also matters whether it's a commission proposed amendment versus someone else's amendment.
In this case, it's a commission proposed amendment.
So, do you think we need to say? I just mentioned that we got this correspondence, and I didn't think we had to act on it, so I didn't say anything. But if you think we should act on it,
I think you can give Eric so to the extent you don't have any comment, I think you can give Eric authority to, without motion, just letting him know that you've reviewed it, and he can let them know that there's been no comment.
Does anybody have any comments?
Well, I kind of approve of that motion. You know,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I approve, and that's 2 of us. Anybody, how do you guys feel about it?
I haven't looked at it.
I don't really have an opinion one way or the other.
I mean, how many gas stations do we want in our town? Are 4 enough?
I don't know.
So
I don't know the basis of this at all, so I'm just.
So I think think you want to be thinking, so if you don't want more gas stations, I think that's more of your personal opinion, as opposed to the ZBA as an agency, you know.
Well, if we all agreed, then it would be, but we're not agreeing.
Yeah, but how you all agree is, so it's not, you're not just a random group, right? Because you could be a group of individuals that files a letter that says we all agree. You're acting as the ZBA with the ZBA authority, and is it something that's relevant to the ZBA? So for example, if they change if the commission decided it was a good idea to change some procedures or, you know, eliminate the ADA reference in the zoning regulations,
And that affects us.
you might have a comment
Yeah.
because
It affects us.
I might
Yeah.
suggest you have a comment because the law says something else. So it's sort of as an agency with the powers and the obligations that you do,
Does it
is there
affect our
input to give to
official-
the commission?
Yeah, does it affect our official capacity?
So I don't think this particular one does.
Does,
So
no.
that's why I've sort of said.
But I want everyone to be aware of it, because if you as an individual want to comment,
Yeah,
you
no,
can.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And if we saw something, if there was something about what was being proposed that would make our life problematic as in our duties
Right.
as ZBA,
You
then
would wanna
we'd
respond.
want to respond as a.
And I think
Yeah,
as
I
they
mean,
go
we-
through the
Eric
reservation,
know it's coming and give it, there'd be more fanfare. And
I think the
everything.
thing is too, is like, since they're rewriting the regulations now,
Right.
and we as a board have already reviewed regulations and made individual comments that we want to discuss, we can, when it gets to that level of detail, we can then discuss proposed comments, and it's a board say. we
So
want
we've
to-
submitted that to them already?
No, before they decided to rewrite the zoning regulations, it came up as a discussion as, you know, we've got a lot of experience reading the regulations and living with the regulations and firing the regulations, that if we had any feedback for the zoning commission that we would, I think Michaela put some, I put some, and then we just collected it all and shared it with Eric and Craig.
Okay, and at this point, within the next month or maybe two, you'll be getting a draft set of regs, which is just phase one, but a draft set of regs that the commission will be looking to adopt. And at that point, you can look through them and get back to the commission with your thoughts on the revised regs. I don't have them to give you yet. You'll be getting them again sometime the next month or so. At that point, you guys can decide to put it on your agenda and give whatever your thoughts are back to the commission about that.
Well, I'll say this, you know, again, the Shoreline Gateway, we have concerns about some of the regulations because we're trying to deal with some of the regulations
Yeah.
in that neighborhood. And when I went to the zoning board, it seems like they're like moving really very slowly or not really, and they're not getting the input. And so I think as a board here, we should be proactive and give them input before it's sealed and dealed.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%, 100%.
To the commission's defense, I will say this. We are looking at doing this in two phases. The first phase, which is what we're finishing up now, is simply to essentially repackage the current regs in a more user-friendly format. The next phase, which will be starting when this phase is finished, will be to go to all of the different shareholders in town and get their input on what future regs should look like. So, yes, I agree, they have not yet solicited input, but the goal was not to do that in the first phase of the process. It was to get the regs essentially operational in a new format, and then go out and seek input from Shoreline Gateway, from Gateway Commission, everybody. Planning Commission, essentially for us to go and try and have various sessions with groups in town to hear what the concerns are, and then to amend the regs to address those concerns.
Right.
So that will be phase two. It will take a year and a half, God knows how long to go through, but the goal is to, at that point, solicit input and then amend the new regs to address that. So phase one is just supposed to be create new regs to work from. Phase two is then amend those regs to address concerns such as the Shoreline Gateway.
So what are they gonna have us look at first? Just that new format?
Just the new format, okay?
And if we make a regulation in Old Lyme, whatever the state of Connecticut says takes precedent. We could say anything, but whatever the state says.
Yes.
Basically.
And in fact, one of the issues is that our regs, not having been substantially amended in many, many years, are now wildly out of step with what the state
Compliance.
So one of the things that's happening in the phase one of this is we are essentially bringing this regs up to current requirements. Now, again, it may be that come tomorrow, that if they sign a new law, that we're going to have to amend again, but at least we're trying to keep up with where things are. And again, some of the variances you've been getting are not even going to be variances going forward because, for instance, minimum house size is no longer something you can regulate for. Okay, so the 800 square foot, one floor, 1,200, totally blown out of the regs, it's not going to be there anymore. So there's just things that are.
There are things in the regs, like that we looked at, I don't know what the name is, but it's like a column of the column thing, and it's like, it's ancient, and it's like saying you can burn the flesh of the, it's like, you know what I mean? It should be out of like.
Yeah, the prohibited uses table has a lot of things that are 1950s era things.
Yeah, and well, before that even.
But again, we didn't have regs before that. So,
All right.
But okay, but again, it is absolutely true that when they go through and substantively revise the regs, we should take out things that no one will ever do in old Lyme ever again.
Right.
You're never going to have a leather factory or rendering of animals or all the other things that we have in there.
Gotta go.
So,
You just attract goat sacrifices, basically.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
well, and for whatever reason, when these were drafted, arcades were a great big thing. There's lots of them about pinball machines and things of that sort.
You
Obviously,
still have them in Soundview.
I want more pinball machines.
Okay, but anyway, I think
Good
we've
wording,
addressed
Mark.
your point. There's gonna be a process, and I think as I've gone through all the regulations already, currently haven't made comments, but we'll make it again in the new format with the new up-to-date legal compliance.
Okay.
Premature.
Are we at a point where I can entertain a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I was just
minutes?
about,
Have you done minutes yet?
Minutes.
we just did it, we did minutes.
We did
Oh, I'm sorry.
minutes.
Yeah,
Get the amendment.
You're right, I'm wrong.
Read us the
Okay,
amendment.
so Brian
lost
made a
track.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Kip, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, abstaining, none, the motion passed 5-0, and the time is
8:31.
8:31.
Fat one.
Thank you much, and I think we're looking forward to working with you again for another year.
I was gonna try and crank you and like vote against it or something like that when the motion comes.
But,
Somehow it'd be like.
no, I think it was good if anyone had a
One of those
question.
crank lines you can't really cross.
Pinball machines, that's a still a big issue here, so.
We have them down in Soundview, you know what I mean? We have.
Good night, everyone.
on the border.
Thank you.